How's it going, guys? My name's Chris. I'm with my co-host JP Flellen, and thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Success Agent Podcast, where we're going to be focusing on helping real estate agents sell more homes and spend less time and less money to do so with modern business tactics. Now, you can catch us live here every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on our Success Agent Facebook page. We're also on other sources like iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or even on LinkedIn. So pretty much if you look for us, you can find us. Now, last week we had special guest Whitney McNair. Whitney is a fellow agent of EXP. She's also recently an Icon agent. And we just kind of talked about how she really grew her business and what she specializes in. If you haven't caught that episode and you're looking to really grow your business with out-of-state clients, looking to really maximize military and relocations, definitely check it out. There is a lot of information in there that you'll really find valuable. This week we have special guest Travis Spears, and Travis owns a solar/electric company. Travis, why don't you give us a quick overview of your company, what you do, what you specialize in, and all that good stuff?
Well, like you said, my name is Travis Spears. I opened up the electric and solar specialist back in February of 2018. We've been now running for a little over a year, and we pretty much specialize in renewable energy as well as LED retrofitting to help reduce your consumption. So, but we're also a full licensed electrical contractor, so we do a lot more than just solar. We're not just solar, we're not just electric. We literally do everything. We do service upgrades, we do basement finishes, hot tub disconnects. And we opened up because we got kind of tired of seeing what the out-of-state contractors were doing to our local community members. And we wanted to be able to provide a service that we felt was superior to what was being put out there. And we've built a very good relationship with our inspectors, with our county and city jurisdictions as far as filing for permits and taking care of everything from that aspect. And we've also worked quite a bit with a few of the local realtors to do inspections and inspection repairs. And with us being new, it was typically with, when other contractors couldn't get over to get the repairs and stuff done in a timely manner. So we kind of stepped up to help out. That's what we're here for.
Cool. Now, what made you get into solar? Right? So I guess you were in electrical before, and then you got into solar?
Yes. So I've been serving this area doing construction since like 2001 and doing electrical work since 2007. In 2014, we started to do a lot of remote oil pads that needed solar systems and stuff to help with the control voltage for all of their remote oil sites. So we started to do that with battery backups, and I spent a lot of time on DC systems that I really kind of saw what the direction this stuff was going and how very useful it was. And it became more of kind of a passion for me. So I jumped more into it, did a lot more research, spent about 18 months really dialing into the best products that are on the market. What's going to help save me time? What's going to help me get this stuff installed quicker? What has a better return on investment? What has more of American-made products? And we really found a system that kind of got us into. And when we opened up, we literally hit the ground running. And we've installed systems up to 24.36 kilowatts, which is just under what our state legislated requirements are for net metering, which is 25 kilowatts. And there's a lot of people, even solar contractors, that are popping up everywhere that have never touched a system of that size. I'm not opposed to going bigger, but we have a lot of requirements inside the state of Wyoming that kind of limit what we're able to do. So the 25 kilowatts and under for residential and commercial applications is really what we focus on. So.
Okay, cool. And has that really started to take on in the year? You said it was a year and a half that you've been in business, specifically in solar, right?
Just over a year. We opened up February 5th of 2018. So
nice. Well, congrats on the recent anniversary. Has that really started to pick up pace?
Yeah. So of course, as you open up a business, it takes a lot just to get your name out. And then it takes a lot for people to start trusting you and what you do. I was fortunate that I've spent a lot of time in this industry as an electrician, that people around here, I've done so much work on so many of the buildings in this area. I've helped build many very high profile buildings that my name was already known. So that kind of helped keep me busy as I first opened up. But then as solar became more of a thing, we did our first solar project in July of last year. And we got that knocked out in about 5 days. And that was the big one, almost 25 kilowatts. And we are finding that our systems are right about 35 to 40 days of signed contract to the date the system's been installed. So we're extremely quick with our stuff. I do all the revisions and stuff on all the permit documents before I even submit them for permitting. This way we know that they're correct. If there's ever any questions from the attorneys, or not the attorneys, the authority having jurisdiction, which is like the inspectors for the county or the city. If there's ever questions, they call me directly. We can walk through it, and I can show them exactly the reason why we sized it the way we did, how we're doing things, and it's still kind of new even to them. So I've had to educate them a little bit on some of the stuff as well. But I carry a master electrician's license in 2 different states. We've been doing this for quite a while now as far as the electrical side. So we have a very good understanding of how the electricity side works, and we can explain to you why the products that we use on the solar side and how the system ultimately is going to help you reduce your consumption or even eliminate your bill 100%. So
tell us about what is the net metering? What does that mean?
So the net metering is actually what's going to save you from having to do batteries. The way the Wyoming state net metering agreement works is anything you overproduce on your solar system versus what you're using from the grid will go onto your account through the utility company, and they'll give you a credit kilowatt for kilowatt. So now you don't have to have batteries to store your power to use it when the sun is down. So say when the sun comes up, you're starting to produce power, you're not home, so it's going onto your account as a credit. Then at nighttime when you come home, the sun is down, you're no longer producing power, you're able to pull from your bank or your credit hours instead of using the utilities power. So you're effectively making your own electricity, and they're storing it for you. So with that being said, you're going to pay a connection fee. Like for example, Black Hills Energy, it's $13 a month plus their franchise fees and taxes. I don't pay anything more than $14.05 a month to be connected to the grid, but I build all of my own power through my solar system. So, and then at the end of the year, when they true it up, which is December 31st, January 1st, anything you've left on the grid that you've produced with your solar system, they will buy it back from you at 3.9 cents a kilowatt. If you're with High West, they buy it back at like 2.6 cents a kilowatt. So it's a little bit less with them. And they also have a higher connection fee, but I think it's basically because they're a co-op. So it's also kind of operator owned as well as resident owned system. So.
Yeah. So what are the biggest questions or misunderstandings that you find with industry professionals such as realtors or appraisers, inspectors? What's that disconnect that a lot of these people are missing?
I think a lot of it is everyone thinks that we have to use batteries. And I really, even on off-grid systems, I try to talk people and make sure that they're well aware that the off-grid system is very, very applicable to a very few number of people. And the reason why is because people really kind of lie about how much energy they really use. If you ask them how long the TV is on, they're like, it's on for maybe an hour a day. When in all reality, it's on in the background along with the radio and you're not using it. But on an off-grid system, you have to be very conservative with how much you use. Otherwise, your batteries will deplete and then you have no power for the nighttime when you really want it. And you can't produce it because the sun's not up. So,
okay. So that's the first thing. What's another disconnect? So batteries, we don't need them.
Right. Yeah. It's not, definitely not a mandatory thing. I think the other disconnect would be that one thing I'm finding right now is when you install a solar system of getting the return on investment as far as property value. We have independent studies that are done by Berkeley that show homes value increases with solar at $2.93 per watt. So for example, with our systems, the return on investment is typically less than 10 years, and it has a 25-year warranty. Well, there's many different ways to look at the actual return on investment because now you're no longer paying an electrical bill. So what it would take for you to pay off your system by using what you were paying for your electrical bill is usually less than 10 years. But if you look at the other aspect of increasing the home value, you're literally going from, say the system was a 5 kilowatt system, right? Which is kind of typical for most homes in this area between about 5 and 6 kilowatts. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna pull up my calculator real quick, just to kind of give you some quick numbers. But if you did a 5 kilowatt system, say a typical install would run you on that roughly 17,000. After your federal tax credit, which is 30% until the end of 2019, you're into that system for about $12,075. So that system, if we didn't have to do anything as far as panel upgrades or anything else, typically is going to have a return on investment of less than 10 years. I've had one system that was 5 years, 7 months. And I've had a couple systems that were just over 10 years, and it was based on having to do panel upgrades and panel changes and a lot more additional work. But so now with that system, if we did, so they're into it for about $12,000 after their federal tax credit, right? And that was a 5 kilowatt system. So if that home value increases by $2.93 per watt, it actually increases the home by $14,650. They're gaining $2,000 more than what they put into the house, as far as solar, right out the gate. So the return on investment based off that independent Berkeley study is you actually get more bang for your buck by doing solar than you would by doing, say, a $30,000 kitchen remodel. So it's definitely a very, in my eyes, very, very applicable investment for home value.
Right. Are you seeing a lot of people who are about to sell their home get solar, or is it for more new home buyers that they get it?
So typically it seems like new buyers or someone that's been in the house for a while, someone that's going to be in that house for a while. And I think a lot of it is because nobody wants to put that type of money into a property and then sell it.
Right.
But for example, like if you're military and you get orders to go overseas and you already own a house and you just did a system, don't be afraid of it because you're able to recoup most of that system, if not more than what you put into it.
So even if you're not using the system, so let's say you're military, you go overseas and everything's pretty much shut off, that system will start paying for itself because you're getting money back in a way.
So if they left their house vacant and it was running like minimum 45 degrees for heat, and they're able to harness the sun and not use any more electricity than they were typically using, then they're actually going to build that bank of power. And at the end of the year, the utility company is going to actually send them a check. So I did my system on my house in November of last year, had it commissioned. January 1st, I had a check from Black Hills Energy for, I think it was like $160. So my system's a little bit different. I kind of overbuilt my system because it's a big advertisement in my neighborhood as you pull in.
Sure.
But it's,
They can see from the stars.
I don't recommend overbuilding it more than about 120 to 130%. And the only reason why I even go a little bit over is A, for aesthetics, just to make sure that the array itself looks good.
Yeah.
And B, the way our net metering works, if it resets in January, typically you don't have enough sun hours in January to offset your power consumption 100%. But that check that you got for anything you've left on the grid from the previous year is usually enough, plus your production, to cover your entire electrical bill for January and February. But I'm very transparent. I want to make sure my customers understand that if we do a solar system, you may have a small bill in January and February, but by the time March and April comes around, you're starting to produce enough power to offset your consumption 100%, and you won't have a bill for the rest of the year.
Gotcha. So I think you actually bring up a good point in how it looks. Do you ever get complaints about, I don't want these big ass panels on my roof? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's come a long way from, say, the 80s, like the old passive solar systems where they have this huge structure built on top of their roof, and they have it to where they're harnessing the heat, and then they have it ducted in the house. So our system's 100% different than what they do. There's many different solar aspects in the solar world. And what we actually cater to is the solar electricity side. And that's typically it. But the panels that we use are black on black. They're black framed. And we use those because they are much more, at least aesthetically pleasing, than using like a gray frame or a white backing. We want something that's going to kind of blend in. They also now make a skin. It's almost like a window tint that you would use for a car, that you can make your panels look almost identical to the shingles that are on the roof. So then it blends in even more. It will kind of shorten up the efficiency of that panel. It will, of course, reduce it by about 3 to 4%. But those who really want to kind of get away from seeing black on black or a black panel on a roof, we can do that. So.
Gotcha. So I wanted to ask you actually, so you know how Tesla had this, or not Tesla, Elon Musk had that big announcement that he's going to get those really small solar panels that look like shingles. Is that even a thing? Where is that?
So there's actually a couple of different companies that are doing that. I'm not a big proponent for those yet. And the biggest reason why is we don't know whose work it is. We don't know, is it the roofers that are putting that stuff in? And
Right.
then we have to figure out how to tie it together. They say they're a 60-year or 70-year shingle. I don't know what the proficiency or the efficiency of those panels themselves are yet. Until we have more research, I would rather sell you a product that is proven and going to work instead of just a name. Like, don't get me wrong, Tesla has some fantastic products out. They're very innovative. But if we have something that's going to outperform it, I'd rather give you something that's a much better product than just sell you a name. So
Right. And it's probably cheaper too, right? The traditional way?
yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much those Tesla shingle roofs are. They're definitely pretty costly. I know that like the Tesla battery backup, the Tesla Powerwall, the battery systems that we typically use actually outperform them 3-to-1. You're replacing those Tesla batteries about every 5 years. So when you're looking at the overall cost and over the 15 years of the usage of that, you're going to get much more bang for your buck by using the battery system that we use.
Okay, cool. And with batteries not really being a requirement, so I know that battery technology is one of like the technologies that's lagging the most behind. I guess that's not really affected by, or solar isn't affected by that issue.
Right.
If batteries were to get better, do you think that they would play a more important role within solar? Like you could store your power and put it in your Tesla or like mitigate it somewhere else. Do you like, is that like a possibility?
I absolutely see that coming, and I see it more coming not because of technology, but because of the way the utility companies are changing the way they bill. So, for example, I'm sure you're well aware down in Colorado, they've already started time of use billing. So they're hitting you with a higher utility rate between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And they're doing that because that's when you're home. You have
bullshit.
right. If say you work nights, then of course you're going to be up during the day and you'll be paying a much less reduced rate. Well, Wyoming hasn't hit that yet. And Wyoming is typically 3 to 4 years behind everywhere else. That time of consumption or time of use billing, it's happening. It's happening all across the nation. And when that finally does hit here, that's when those batteries are going to make much more of sense to put in. Typically what we can actually retrofit our batteries in at any point in time. But right now with the cost of the batteries, I don't recommend it. I don't push it because the cost of them is really high. The technology is there too, but it's kind of like how solar was 6 years ago. You couldn't get a solar system installed for less than $9 a watt. And now it's come down, you're talking $3 to $4 a watt versus $9 a watt. Where batteries now, you're talking for some of our like ecosystems that we have, you're talking $24,000, $25,000 just for the battery system. That's not including the install and everything else. If you wanted to do, we have an AC battery system through one of our suppliers that we use. And that one, you can actually store your power and then program it to only pull from the batteries during that peak billing cycle, during that time of use billing. So you can only pull from batteries between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. So now you're completely cutting them out as far as a utility company. But the other thing is if you overproduce, you can also store it and then you can use it whenever you want. So there's a couple of different reasons. It just, to me, right now, the cost effectiveness will fall in place when we have time of use billing.
Gotcha. That's an interesting point. So let's say we have a client who's considering solar. What are some really important things that we can know? We we don't want to know all the details. That's what you're there for. But what are some important points or aspects that we can point out for our clients just to point them in the right direction?
So one size does not fit all, right? We don't base anything off of square footage of the house because how you use 3,000 square feet versus how I use 3,000 square feet. I got 2 kids that leave lights on everywhere. Maybe we have everything that's LED, so that our consumption is a lot less than most homes, but everything is different. And I tailor everything to each individual customer's needs. So I base it off of your most current electrical bill. It gives me a 13-month snapshot into how much power you use, when you use it, and how often you're using it. So I can base a annual production or an estimated annual production off of your annual consumption. So everything is really tailored more to you, like on pretty much all aspects of it. And then once we design the system, we can make changes right there on the fly before we send it to permitting and engineering. So, but yeah, we do all aspects of it. So.
Okay. So one thing that you'd say is one size doesn't fit all.
Correct.
What are some other important aspects that we can know as industry professionals?
We don't have to put it on the roof. We also
Oh,
do ground mount systems.
okay.
I actually recommend ground mount systems if you have the area and if you don't mind using some of that real estate for it. Biggest reason why is because we can make a smaller system because we can set the angle to where it's going to be the most
Ah,
prime angle for production, or at least for harvesting of the sun in this area. Um, I can't tell you how many ground mounts that we've done, but they perform very well. Our systems also come with a lifetime monitoring, so you actually get to see what your system is doing today. Every 15-minute snapshot, it'll tell you like the last 7 days, the last month, and then also the lifetime that it's been installed. So you actually get to check out every individual panel individually and see exactly how each one's performing.
gotcha. So as a ground mount, would that actually be cheaper to set up but perform just as well because you're going to need less materials?
There's a little bit more labor when it comes to ground mounts
Oh,
and
I
more
wouldn't have thought
material,
that.
right?
Yeah.
But and of course you have trenching, so there's that. There's a little added cost there. But there's a couple of differences. For example, on a roof mount, say we get our hailstorms that come in, right? Very common. I don't have to worry about my panels getting broke, but I do have to worry about your roof needing to be replaced because it got damaged from the hail. So then we got to remove the system from the roof, let the roof be replaced, and then reinstall the system and recommission it. And typically that's covered all by your homeowner's insurance because now it's an external structure. There's a couple of different insurance companies that insure them a different way.
Yeah.
But most common that we found is that they insure as an external structure, and they are usually insured up to like $25,000 to $28,000, and you're looking at a difference of about $7 a month, maybe $11 a month. So it's not huge, and most of them want to insure it for like the cost of systems. So say your system ran the $17,000 that we talked about earlier, like for that 5 kilowatt system.
Right.
That's not going to cost you $17,000 for me to remove it and reinstall it. You've already bought the equipment. We did a removal and reinstall for a house up in on Panorama Drive out north of Cheyenne, and I think we were into that for about $5,000 to remove the system, reinstall it, and recommission the entire thing. So
Okay. Gotcha.
So if
Um,
the average homeowner owns a home for 5 to 7 years, what's the sales pitch there for solar?
so biggest thing is you're going to pay that bill no matter what, whether you're paying it to yourself with a solar system or whether you're paying it to a monopolized utility, because you don't get a choice of who you get to bring power to your house. So it's really those are the two biggest points. But if you're going to use it as an increased value to your home and then also spend 5 years there without paying a utility bill, I think there's a lot of pros to that too as well.
So really, it's a it's an absorbed cost regardless. So you're either paying utility company or paying solar. It's the long-term benefit where it tends to pay off, is what you're saying.
And that's what we were talking about earlier. I'm kind of torn on that because the increased value to the home with the solar system being installed, it also shows that those homes sell 30% faster than any other house that's on the market, which here really doesn't mean much because you put a house on the market, you got 5 offers that afternoon.
Right.
Houses here are getting snatched up pretty quickly, right? So it'll play a point, I'm sure, at another point in time. But most people seem like they're not afraid of solar when it's already installed on a house. Some people seem like they're more afraid of it if they're the ones that are doing the install or if they're the ones that are hiring to have the install done.
So basically what you're saying is somebody has to be the first one to do it.
Yes.
So you're asking for volunteers is what you're telling me.
Kind of, I guess.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess, somebody had to get on the moon for the first time, and that probably cost them a freaking fortune. And then they got cheaper and cheaper after they kept making more trips, I guess.
Right.
So.
And absolutely. I mean, look at this cost of solar now versus what it was, and what I'm seeing on like the out-of-state contractors versus my pricing and stuff, the products that we use with the microinverter technology, they come with a 25-year warranty. So my systems have a 25-year warranty, and they have usually a 10-year return on investment if you're looking at just the cost of the system versus the cost of your utility bills. The out-of-state contractors that are throwing this stuff up, they're using string inverters that have a 10-year warranty, and you can't add to that system. So if you don't plan on adding to that system, and then say 4 years down the road, now your electrical needs have changed, and now you want to add panels and whatever, Now you have to completely change out your inverter because your inverter is not sized properly. Well, whatever you paid for that inverter, now that just became a paperweight because nobody's going to rebuy it. It only has a 10-year warranty and you're already into it for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to replace that inverter with an oversized one or an upsized one. You got to pull new circuits in. Where with my systems, I can add to them.
So it's a modular system.
What's that?
It's a modular system like Legos. You take the
Essentially,
out, put a new one in.
Yeah, it's a lot like plug and play where I can add right to my racking system. I can add right directly to my branch circuits on my panel strings. I always set it up for adding onto in the future. So if we're only running like say 20 amps of solar, I usually set the combiner box to where we can put up to 60 amps of solar on it. So you never have to worry about adding on to it.
So it sounds like if you're looking to do this, you should find someone who geeks out on solar versus someone who just says they can do it, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions in this area. There's a lot of people who will sell it to you and they can't explain to you how it works. They have no clue. And then you also have the installers who have zero formal training. And all of our staff, they're all licensed electricians. We put them through a 4-year apprenticeship program. Once they get done with that, they have the Wyoming State Journeyman's license. If we have only solar techs, then we will be sending them through NABCEP training. So this way they have the training that they're supposed to have to do this install.
It's actually, so are those the certifications people should be looking for when looking for an installer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And make sure they're licensed. So in the city of Cheyenne alone, like they have an additional solar contractor's license. I'm probably $900 deep in all my licensing just in this area per year. So I definitely hold a lot of value in that because I know that we're qualified to do what we do.
Okay. And what are those certifications real quick again?
So in order to do the electrical tie-in, it must be done by a licensed electrical contractor, which we are. In order to do a solar install and provide a solar design, you must be a licensed solar contractor, which we are. So we carry all of that. We're licensed throughout the entire state, so pretty much almost any county areas, but every city also has their own licensing. So if you're working inside of a city as an electrical contractor, you have to have their city contractor's license as electrical. Cheyenne's the only one that's a little bit differently as far as what I've found so far, but they require that solar contractor's license. And you have to actually go in front of the licensing board, present them with your experience, and they just kind of talk with you about what you do, what you've known, and where you've gotten your training, and if they feel that you're qualified, they'll issue you a license. But we have all of our stuff gets inspected with all the city inspectors, the county inspectors, and they see us on a pretty regular basis. So it's going well.
So we kind of talked last night about having issues, like you want to talk to an appraiser so you can kind of review, the benefits and the Berkeley study that you were talking about. Why do you think appraisers don't see the value that you see? Obviously you're a little bit biased, but
right.
What's the difference there?
I think a lot of it is just because it's a variable that's kind of unknown. It's still semi new to this area. And just like we had talked last night, we kind of discussed that we didn't have a whole lot of homes for them to compare each home to that had solar on it. Well, in December of 2017, right before I opened up my business, just in December, which is usually one of the coldest, most terrible months, there was 53 homes in Laramie County that went solar just in that month. I now have a stack of all the installs that were done in the whole year of 2018 for Laramie County as well as for the city of Cheyenne. And there's like 28 pages of how many houses have gone solar. So it's happening all over. So we're going to have that start to develop and see a lot more of that. There's other things I would like to see happen. For example, I'd like to see like a green MLS. So if there's a home that has solar or wind turbines, that those are able to go onto a green MLS. So when people are looking for green homes, then you have that whole listing of everything that's available that has solar that's available, for purchase. So
we've had several contractors try that here.
Yeah.
And it's still, they're out of, I think there's only 1 or 2 left out of we had at least 4 at one point that were doing green homes.
Yeah.
They were doing HERS ratings and, making sure everything was high efficiency and all that stuff. And their whole sales pitch was save 1 month in payments if you go green.
Right.
Well, I mean, yes, I get that, but then you're also paying, a premium or the perceived amount that's a premium, because I mean, when everything else is premium, you can't be like premium,
Right.
it's really hard to like, that's not a good way to sell because
Yeah.
you're, hey, now that you're already out there at the top of the food chain, we're going to add another category called the food chain.
Right.
You just can't it's already too hard to, so I think a lot of it, the Boulder, Colorado mentality hasn't quite come up to Cheyenne yet. So I don't think a lot of people care so much of that. And I
See,
think
I'm not looking so much at like just energy efficient. I'm looking at more of something that has a renewable or something that's creating its own energy.
right. And I think, I mean, if you would have heard how long it took for us to get recycle cans up here, dude.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's I mean, the mentality of saving the planet up here is, they're like, dude, we're cowboys, in the freaking field every day. Who cares? Like, it smells like methane every day here. So, so I think it's an education piece.
Right.
It's not a. I don't think you're gonna get people to jump on the bandwagon and be like, "Hurrah, let's save the planet!" Like it's. I
Absolutely.
think, but people love free or cheap or save me money.
Right.
So I think what ends up having to happen is somehow saving the planet and saving me money have to mesh together. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
has to be
It's funny you bring that up because that's one thing I always talk to people about is that you really, there's only a couple of reasons that people go solar. You either have those who are like super tree hugging hippies that's all they want, and they want to completely live off grid until they realize what off grid really means. And then you have the very conservatives that realize that the numbers make sense. You're going to pay it no matter what, whether you pay your utility bills and then every year a 5% increase in rate, or do you pay yourself by doing a solar system and not pay that utility and not pay that 5% increase?
Yeah.
So it becomes pretty huge. The system on one of the houses I just sent out as a proposal, I want to say it was like $19,000 for the total system, but it has a breakdown and it's kind of conservative, about a 4% increase in utility costs over the next 25 years. Over that 25 years alone, it was showing that it was going to save them like $94,000 in their utility costs. $17,000 sounds pretty good for a $94,000 savings.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Like, okay, if I do this now, how is it going to save me money later?
Right.
Well, it's kind of like buying a used electric vehicle. Like, you buy it after it's already depreciated. You buy it after, and then you calculate your gas costs. You figure out how much you commute. You figure out how many miles you're driving. And then you figure out, okay, if I have to hold this vehicle for a certain amount of time to get my money back. And even though it's a little bit higher today, but if you keep your vehicles for 5 to 6 years, and I don't. So, but there's a lot of people that do. I mean, if you just see some of the busted ass vehicles that are on the roads around here.
Oh, yeah.
But eventually it's going to, not only is it, you're going to recoup those costs, but it's also going to save you a ton of money long term.
Right.
So, I mean,
but yeah, it's interesting.
People just don't do the math. I mean, like, a lot of people just look at it as it's 17 grand. Hell no.
Right.
And then they just go, why would I do that? I'm only going to be in this house for whatever. And it's like, nah, dude, you're not looking at it from the right perspective. You got to look at it from, if you break this down and do the actual math, like if you're even in this house 8 years, you're going to get a check for $5,000 when it's all said and done. Plus, if legislation and the trends and all that stuff, I mean, believe it or not, Cheyenne, at least in the housing sector, is moving just a little bit faster than what we would think it is. I think a lot of there's newer talent getting involved and trying to change some things. And I think that's eventually going to be the norm, especially now that we're seeing like these ridiculous prices for houses that we've never seen before.
Right.
2 and 3, 4 offers within 24 hours. I mean, I've been in this business for 10 years and I haven't seen an industry, a climate like we're having right now.
Yeah.
It's great. But it's also kind of scary because it's like if we have like, real estate apocalypse around here where there's all these buyers that need houses and we got nothing to give them, builders can't build that fast.
Right.
You don't want them to. You don't want a house that's been put up and down in 2 months. I've seen that happen. And it was like a gingerbread house by the time it was done, just because I was like, what? But anyways,
that kind of brings me to a point too that you're just mentioning as far as like building and having it done that way. We've also had some communications with some of the local builders. We have a home that we're doing from the ground up. We're doing all the electrical, we're doing the service, we're doing a complete home wire. We're also prepping it for a 40 by 60 pole barn to be added at a later date. And we're putting in a 27 panel ground mount to completely offset their electrical bill right out the gate. And he has that entire thing incorporated with his mortgage payment.
Yeah.
So he was able to finance that solar system for 30 years.
It makes it much more appealing when it's already built into the house.
Totally.
You can design the whole house around the, if you want to design it around the solar or whatever you want to do, or, give it its own little picket fence around the solar panels. There's women out there watching going, I
can make that pretty.
In my yard, unless it's, I'm just saying, we're going to put a little garden in the front, and I can stare at the panels in the back,
Right.
It's party in the front, party in the back and business in the front. You know what I mean? Sorry for you that are watching that have mullets still. I apologize. I didn't.
So actually, so when I was at a recent convention or summit, there was a guy proposing the idea of a solar farm. So instead of everyone getting a solar panel, at least this is the way I understood it, they buy a big plot of land and they put a bunch of solar panels on it, and that generates the electricity for whoever subscribes to it.
Right.
What are the benefits or the cons? What's the pros and cons for that versus, getting your own system and building it on your own house?
So there's a couple things that happened with that. Here in Wyoming, that was actually proposed through legislation, and they shut down the idea of a community solar project. So we are trying to draft some literature and stuff to pass laws to allow for that, to where you can do a solar system to help a residential neighborhood, just that one. Mm-hmm. So then whatever is produced, it would go to each house. Of course, it has to be broken out evenly because, again, how each house uses their electricity is going to be different. So we want to make sure that everybody's getting the same amount, but that's the hard part that has to be figured out as far as the legislation and everything else. There is a utility company that has approached me about building a solar farm. And what they want to do is they want to build that farm and then charge their customers 3 cents more per kilowatt than what they're currently charging them because it's green energy. Right? Well, that same customer can put their own system on their own house and reap their own benefits instead of having to worry about buying green energy from a utility company. I don't know. My morals kind of come into play on that. You're talking millions of dollars worth of work. I'd love to see that stay local, but at the same point in time, I'd rather provide that homeowner, that customer, with their own system that's tailored to their exact needs and let them reap the benefits of it. So, and we're not just doing the install and walking away from it. We're here to be, supporting that install and that investment for the next 30 years. Mm-hmm. We offer a biannual panel cleaning. So we go out there twice a year, clean all the panels from all the bird deposits, the dirt, the dust, any trash around the area. We dial all the way into the system and verify that all the communications are operating correctly. We monitor the system as long as the customer allows us to monitor it. So if there is a communication failure, it comes to us as well as to them. We both get an email. And at that point, I have to see my emails every day, running a business. So if there is a communication failure, I can get somebody scheduled to get out there pretty quickly to get that taken care of so their production kicks back up. That's the last thing we want is for them to realize that, hey, this isn't producing and it's been 3 months now. Well, you just lost 3 months of production. And if that happened over the summer, that could be very detrimental to your annual production. But
yeah, that's lots of logistics and involved. It reminds me of, remember that carbon credit crap that they were trying to pull years ago, where everything had like a certain carbon emissions to it, and do you remember that? No, that was like years ago. I think that was back in the 90s.
Yeah, I do remember a bit of that.
I don't remember
Like, what?
that. I think it's pretty funny though that, I mean, it only makes sense that utility companies are trying to actually monopolize solar power. It's I'm not surprised by that, but
We're gonna harness the sun and charge everybody for it.
Well, and they want to tax the sun. They're trying to figure out all these ways, and it's definitely frustrating on this side of it to see what they're trying to do. But it's tough, but
I mean, is so the solar energy that the panel actually takes in, is it like a certain like ray that it's absorbing, or what? I mean, what is it?
so even if it's sun or cloudy out, it's still going to produce power, but it's bringing in basically the UV rays, and it's harnessing that into the cells and creating DC power.
Okay.
The difference between what we do and with our microinverters versus what the string inverters are doing is we're turning that DC power into AC immediately. So you have 240 volts of AC power going down the side of your house to your combiner box. On the string inverter system, you can have upwards of 1,000 or more volts of DC going down the side of your house. And now, again, I've been doing electrical work for going on 13 years, and I would much rather be dealing with 240 volts AC than even have to deal with 100 volts of DC. DC is a very dangerous voltage. It's very unforgiving. And for me, I'd rather put in a system that's going to be much more safe for that house, not just for yourself, but your kids, your family, anyone that's around it. To me, it's a much better product.
So explain to our audience, for those that are, electric dumb, AC versus DC. I mean, I know, because I've seen the band, but but outside of that, I mean, you got to explain to our audience, like, what is it that you mean? Because I know people see it on like the back of their little plugins and stuff like that, but they don't.
Right. So your AC is typically what runs everything inside your house, and it's an alternating current. So it goes back and forth, and we have a 60 hertz frequency here in the US. So that means it's going back and forth 60 times every second. DC is a direct current. That means it's only flowing in one direction. Once you break it, it's very unforgiving. DC also arcs a lot more. So any device that's on that system requires to be a very fast opening device. If it doesn't, then that electricity will arc from one point of either anything that's able to be energized, so any metallic part, because electricity very much loves metallic or metal pieces. So if you don't open it fast, you'll see that arc go all the way across from one point to another, and it's just unforgiving by all means. But your AC power is controlled through your circuit breakers with arc fault or GFI protection. Their trip settings are so much faster. So if something does happen, it's opening immediately. So it's going to keep you safe.
Nice.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, is there anything you wanted to add for our audience?
I guess if there's any other further questions from anyone directly in the audience, or if you want to get a hold of me or something, I can absolutely help you out in any aspect. All of our proposals that we set up, they're 100% free. I don't charge to come in and show you the size of the system we could do, design the system. I don't charge for that. Ultimately, like we discussed, once you show them the numbers, it makes sense. And that's what we want to make sure that we're able to do with you guys. We also very much promote local labor, local sourcing of materials and stuff. We are trying to work with local banks in developing a direct to our customers a solar financing option, whether it be like a HELOC or a construction loan. But there's a couple of banks here locally that are offering discounted APRs for green or renewable energy type services on your house. You can take them out to 10 to 12 years. There's a lot that's going to be based off of how much equity you have, what's your debt to income ratio. So there's still going to be some variables. But I'm not the banker. That's not really stuff that I know. I know the electrical, I know the solar, and I want to get you in touch with those guys who can take care of that. I will absolutely do everything I can with what I do and what I perform well at, and get you taken care of. So
great. And how can they get a hold of you?
So you can call us directly. Our business line is 307-631-0805. That's actually going to go direct to me. We have multiple journeymen that are in the field that also have contacts that we can get you to. You can also email me. It's tspears@electricandsolar.com. Our website is being revamped and set up. So you can also check out our website and contact us through that for now. But just keep in mind that within the next probably 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be a completely new website, and that is electricandsolar.com. You can also Google us directly. I know that it's taken a bit to be on the Google listing because we're still a new company, but yeah, we're just the electric and solar specialist. We're right here in Cheyenne. If you also want to contact like the local authority, whether it be the city's office, or ask them, they'll get you my contact information as well. But yeah. Also, we have a Facebook page. It's at Renewable YO, or the Electric and Solar Specialist. That you can search either one of those, and we'll pop right up.
And for our out-of-state listeners, do you provide like a consulting type work for just helping people navigate the solar world?
Yeah, we actually have a company that we teamed up with that does all of our generator backup systems for our homes that we're doing, and they're actually licensed in Colorado as well too. So they're a full licensed electrical contractor, but they only want to do the generator side. So we have kind of teamed up with them to help them out on that side. But if you reach out to us, we can get you set up with them as well too. So.
Great. Cool. And JP,
do you have an offer for our audience?
So yeah, one thing we were talking about is doing something to help you guys out as far as like all the realtors and stuff. And I'm sure it's also going to help get our name out. But we're going to offer up a 20% discount on all of our inspection fees. So our typical inspection fees for electrical are $80. An inspection fee for solar is $80. If we combine it and we do the electric and the solar on the same house, we'll do the entire thing at $145. But we'll offer a 20% discount if you mention this podcast or Titan Real Estate, and we'll definitely help you guys out.
Awesome.
So
awesome. JP, how can we get a hold of you?
Oh, you can get a hold of me everywhere. Just Google JP Fluell and you can find me.
You're not going to struggle through the Clixo thing anymore?
All of my social stuff is at clixo.com/J Fluellen. So you can find me on social. Dude, if you're watching this, you know me. So just Google it. So we appreciate you watching though. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Appreciate Travis. Thanks for coming on. It was a great conversation. Learned a lot about solar. If anyone has any questions, definitely go to Travis. He's going to be the guy to talk to. And next week, we're going to have another guest. Same idea, featuring top agents or industry professionals, just to learn their insight to help us be better agents, sell more homes, and spend less time doing it. Now, if you want to be a guest, feel free to reach out to me or JP. My email address is chris.successagent@gmail.com. Or you can just reach out through the Facebook page. I manage that. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Until then, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Travis. Yeah.